You're listening to the Spotless Podcast, where cleanliness is always next to podliness. Now, here are your hosts, Hannah Brooks Olson and Andrew Walsh.
I could not figure out where all of our little glass Pyrex dishes were, put away Tupperware food storage dishes. The last few times I made dinner, I will make dinner, and then if I remember, I will also set out the right leftover container so that when Keith comes through to clean up, the leftover container is already there. And really I do this so that he doesn't have to shout from the other room, which container should I use, because
this is called managing up.
Yeah. And you know, once you learn the patterns, you're like, okay, like I can get one step ahead of this, right? So, and I just know that there's like a lot of times where he's like, which one of these containers should I use? And I'm like, use your best judgment, but if I just set it out, done and done, right? The last few times, I look in our little cupboard with our pie, and we don't have a ton of these containers. Like, we have one set, and they just have all been missing. And I was like, what's happening? This morning, I am standing, trying to decide what I want to eat, and I realize this is where all the containers are. I have not cleaned out the fridge and gotten rid of the last, 8 green beans in a little glass container that I thought I was going to use that are well past their date now. So, 15 minutes before we started recording this morning, I just was in a fugue state, and I was like, I'm reclaiming my containers. And I found 6 of our little glass containers in the fridge just with old food, and it's always like the last little dregs of leftovers that it is just not getting eaten, or like that, you know, it was okay the first night, but no one's gonna go back for it, and it felt really good.
Do you know, I think about you and Keith a lot when you talk about leftovers in your house, because you say that he doesn't really like leftovers. I feel like a lot of the dishes I make are actually better on the second day.
So,
Genevieve and I sort of have an agreement. Like chili, I think, is better.
Yes.
I make this curry dish that is so much better the next day.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that is just better. And I love leftovers because it means that I don't have to think about what I'm eating the next day for lunch, right? Mm-hmm. The problem is, one, that Keith doesn't always like leftovers, but also that he forgets them. That's he doesn't
see them.
He doesn't see them. He doesn't remember them. Or the other thing that happens all the time is 2 weeks later, he'll be like, oh, do we still have some mac and cheese in there? I'm like, no, I made that literally 2 Wednesdays ago, and it is now Saturday. And if it is still in there, it's only because I've been lazy about cleaning out the fridge. But you should not eat that. I think the way that he views the time, because and a big part of this, I understand, is because in our household, he manages things like getting us super fast internet and pirating
cable management, pirating
entertainment because we are angry at all of the streamers. There's a lot of things that he manages, and I'm going to segue soon, because the thing he just recently managed was we got a new roof on our house because the old roof had a leak, and so we've been living through that. But he doesn't manage the food and the groceries. He, at the end of the day, after the workday, most days, magically, a plate of food that he has not had to consider at all appears in front of him at some point. And if I ask him, what do you want for dinner? And he says, I don't care. Then again, that's the end of the thought until it appears in front of him. And I have made all the choices and managed, what is in the cupboard, what's happening with this, whatever. And so I understand that is also why he doesn't always know what's in the fridge, because the plate of food has appeared, and then he might box up the leftovers if there are any, or whatever, and then that's the end. That's the end of the chronicling in his brain. Whereas I could tell you exactly
it's kind of an object permanence situation.
It is kind of, and it's also the component parts of it. This is the other thing: is if we make a meal like a curry or chili where it's all one food and it's just all in one container, I feel like it's better.
Oh,
it's
interesting.
Sustained better in his brain, because
Sure.
that's the only thing you need to make. But if the component parts are separate when you box them up, there's rice, there's whatever
Yes.
Fake meat we're using, or
stir fry.
Yeah,
or,
if you box it up separately, it's definitely going to disappear.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he's not, even though he boxed it up a lot of the time, he's not going to remember exactly what the bits were and what all went in it. And so, I think that Whereas, like, I could tell you exactly what I have made for dinner and what we've eaten for dinner for probably the last week. I could go back in the last week. And not only could I tell you what I made, I could tell you which parts came from which stores or what was, repurposed leftovers from one thing to the next. Like, I could tell you all of that. Mm-hmm. And I can also tell you exactly what is in our cupboard right now and exactly what's in our freezer because I keep that stock in my head. What I could not tell you is, honestly, if you gun to my head, I couldn't tell you who our internet service provider is. I don't know. That's not for me. That's not my bit. No, he manages that. And that's the thing is, like, but the thing that I manage is more of a daily, like, there's daily interface with it other than just using it. So, like, I get it. But when I go through and clean out and I, like, it's always, like, little bits of leftovers that, like, I ate some of it for lunch and then I was like, I've eaten this too much. Like, I'm over it. And then it just doesn't get eaten, or it's like, I don't know, wasn't that good to begin with. But so now, like, all of our Pyrex are accounted for. They're in the dishwasher, ready to go, and I feel great.
All right, I got 3 things I need.
Okay.
I got 3 things. I got 2 clarifications.
Okay.
And a question.
All right.
Okay. The first clarification is when you set out the Pyrex that you want Keith to use when he comes into the kitchen to clean up after dinner, I said that's managing up. I would like to take that back. Okay. That implies that he is your manager, and I didn't mean it that way. I just meant that it was your way of sort of guiding somebody doing their job. Yes. But I don't like the idea of me implying that he is your manager. That is
if
not
anything,
the power
I'm
dynamic
the manager in
your
that
relationship.
situation.
Exactly. So I want to clarify that. Is that clarified? Okay.
Yes.
Secondly, when you were talking about kind of bunching up different kinds of foods into Pyrex for refrigeration, and I used stir fry as an example of something that would be separated, I want to be very clear to you and the listeners. I don't think that you need to separate every vegetable out of stir fry and wrap it up individually. I was trying to think of another dish that goes with rice.
Yes, but
and
it's
so
true,
I meant
though.
Rice and stir fry.
Yes.
But people who have listened to the show might think, Andrew probably has a million little containers, and when he's done making stir fry, he takes out 1 carrot and wraps it in this container, and he takes out 1 snap pea and he puts it in this container. That is not the case. I put it all in the same container.
Yes.
Go ahead. I actually have a stir fry problem, which is I love stir fry. I make stir fry quite a bit. My favorite ingredient in stir fry is broccoli.
Yeah.
And also, I love leftovers.
Yes.
But broccoli is the worst part of the leftover stir fry.
You think?
I think so. Like, and I don't mind leftover like roasted broccoli. Like if I do sort of a charred broccoli in the oven, I love that the next day. I'll eat it cold, but it still is like it's got that little bit of a char taste to it and salt. Like I love broccoli, but putting broccoli into a stir fry, especially if you heat it up the next day, like there's something about microwaved broccoli the second day that I think gives the rest of the stir fry a real stank.
Interesting. So I have a very bad habit of just eating everything cold when it's leftovers.
Me too.
Like
I do that a lot. Yep.
Whatever.
Standing at the counter, looking into the middle distance, probably listening to some. Well, you're probably like listening to a murder podcast. I'm listening to some like terrible AM radio.
Yeah, I was going to say sports,
Just standing and eating it cold.
Yep, that's 100%. That is me. If I do warm up a lot of things, I'll just throw it back in a pan. Like I'm very big in just reheating it back in a pan. And that does help a lot of the time. And this is smart. So this is also one of Keith's issues with eating leftovers is that he really wants all the component parts to be properly heated. And so like every time he microwaves something, he does this funny thing where there was a series of weeks where I kept finding a shot glass next to the sink. And I was like, what the fuck is that? I was like, do we have a problem? Like, are you day drinking? What is the deal with this little shot glass? And he was like, no, it's when I microwave things. I put water in the shot glass, I put it in the microwave, and it keeps it from drying out. I was like, okay.
I've heard of things like this with certain foods, but I've never done it.
He does it with like almost everything he heats up in the microwave.
Like a piece of pizza maybe or
something.
No,
so pizza, he has a special way of heating up, which is that he puts it in a pan, and then he puts tin foil over it, and it crisps up the bottom, but it also melts the cheese. It is a really good way to reheat pizza, by the way.
So he's a pan on the stovetop, not the oven.
Yes. On the stovetop, he gets out like a frying pan or a skillet or whatever, puts a slice of pizza on it, covers it with tinfoil, and then has it like on kind of like a medium low heat, and it crisps up the bottom, and it melts the cheese, and it heats it all the way through. So that's the way he reheats pizza. But
That's interesting.
We are forever trying to figure out the best way to reheat things, and I think this is also part of the leftover issue because again, I just eat it cold. I don't care. But this is also why. So stir fry. When you said separately though, this is stir fry is one of those things where you put a little container of like the whatever for us it's usually like tofu or fake meat or whatever and veggies, and then you box up the rice separately. I like to box up the rice separately because I might use it for something else if it's just rice. And I know there's like a whole bunch of stuff about reheating rice. Whatever. I'm still alive. Confirmation bias. Whatever.
Wait, what? What are you talking about?
Oh, there's a lot of food safety concerns about reheated rice specifically because it's really dense and it's very possible for like bacteria to grow in reheated rice. And like there are food safety experts who will tell you like literally just throw away the rice after don't reheat rice ever.
So it's not about the going in the refridge because it's I call it the refridge.
Sure.
It's about the process of reheating it because here's what I'm getting at. This is why I've always had in the back of my head some things like there. Yeah. I know people say there's something scary about white rice.
Yeah.
Like you have to kind of keep an eye on it, but I also know that like I make a lot of fried rice, and the way you make fried rice is you're supposed to make white rice and then let it sit in the fridge overnight
to dry
and then you eat. Yeah, exactly. So I think go against health experts.
So I think part of it is that usually when you reheat rice, like maybe in the microwave, it doesn't get hot enough to kill the bacteria. So I'm wondering if fried rice is actually a way to safely reheat rice because you're getting it so hot in the pan. Maybe. But
then does that make the leftover fried rice dangerous?
I don't know. That's a good question. If we have any food safety experts out there, I would love to know. I
don't know. I kind of don't want to know because like you said, I'm fine. Like this is my process.
Survivorship bias around rice is very real in my household. Please let me live in my own denial. There are plenty of other things I'm aware of in life, and there's only so much the human brain can take. But yes. So we have the fridge is free of leftovers, which means that this week I will set ahead of denoting like when things are going in the fridge, and I will remind Keith of what's in there, and I'll just eat as many leftovers as I can. But
one more thing. Third thing. So this was not a clarification. This was a question regarding Pyrex, which is really on point for our show, which is I don't think we have many of those. We have some Pyrex. Those really, I think Pyrex is the right word. Very thick glass.
Yes.
Like what's
casserole
the word I'm looking
dishes.
For? Casserole dishes is exactly what I'm looking for, and that we cook in, or like I'll make a little mini casserole in, or whatever I'm cooking. But
Pop
I don't
the lid
have
on,
the
put it back in the fridge. Amazing. Yeah.
Well, no, see, I don't have the kind that are storage containers.
Oh.
I just have like casserole dishes. But I know what you're talking about, and they have the lids that can kind of snap on.
Yeah.
They probably have a rubber seal. And my question for you and other people who have this, do you throw the lids in the microwave, the ones with the plastic and the rubber, or just the container itself?
Just the container. So here's the thing. We use Pyrex.
I'm sorry. I said microwave. I didn't mean microwave. This is a terrible habit I have of saying one word but meaning another. I meant dishwasher.
The dishwasher. Okay.
Yes.
So that's also a good question. So we have Pyrex casserole dishes that have the lid that can go on them. There's also Pyrex ones with the glass lid that goes on, and you can also buy it. You might be able to find like a Rubbermaid lid that goes over your casserole dishes. There's a lot that like they do sell the lids separately, and so you can store in it. I almost exclusively bake in casserole dishes with the lid on, or like with where the lid can go on, because you just have way less cleanup. And I know you also downsize your leftovers.
Yes.
We cannot do that in my household, because if I were to move the leftovers from one container to the other, somehow they would become even more invisible. I cannot change the residential address of the leftovers. They have to stay in the container that's easily identifiable. But so the casserole dish, like it'll sit in the fridge for 2 or 3 days with withering casserole in there. But the lids, so our Pyrex put away containers are basically glass Tupperware, right? And they are bowls that go from big to little, and they stack really nicely all together. And there's like 2 or 3 really little, like bigger than a ramekin, but not a lot bigger than a ramekin.
Yeah,
and
I love
then
those. Yep.
There's like a, kind of a more regular, like one person's lunch size, and then there's like an even bigger one, and then there's a really big one. Yeah. And they all have a lid, and they have red, like rubber lids. They do split over time, the lids do. Like they just
the rubber seal area.
Yeah, like the ridge kind of will split most of, I think. And at one point we bought new ones. Keith went and found like how you could just buy the new lids. I do put them in the dishwasher, but I put them on the very tippy top slidey rack where you put like like that's where I put things like salad tongs and like I don't know what other people are using in the dishwashers.
I usually use the top for cups and
so we have even a beyond. So we have the bottom row, we have the middle row, and then we have like a slidey. It's almost like a drawer, like a flat drawer.
Yeah,
kind of,
okay.
That guy.
I literally have like a 30 or 40-year-old dishwasher, so we don't have that. Yeah, okay, I see what you mean. Yep.
Yeah, we have like a little, it's like a tray that slides out. And a lot of times I'll put the wooden spoons on that just so that they don't get all stuck in the bottom. Before we had that, tongs. Before we had that in our dishwasher, I would always lay the wooden spoons like sideways on the top rack. But so I put the lids up there because I think it gets less hot. And I can lay them flat and they get like washed. But so that's how I clean those. But
they are dishwasher safe, but be conscientious about it.
Yeah, and they do over time. They just the rubber or the plasticky rubber, whatever, like breaks down. It's and God knows everything's getting shittier as we go. So, but so that's usually what we do. I also have a few of those kind of like stretchy lid covers. But those I just find they never feel clean.
Talk about stretchy lid covers.
Okay. So they're like, I don't know of a better way to say this. It's like a really robust Tupperware condom. It's like you like stretch it over.
I've never seen this. Is it a replacement? Because when you were describing, when you were describing what I'm doing if I have leftover casserole and I'm going to keep it in there, I'm using Saran wrap. And I was going to say that, but then I thought about your mom, who would be like, Andrew, stop using Saran wrap, and then that's why I didn't say it. Hi, Julie.
You can also use aluminum foil for that, which is like a little more recyclable.
I usually do that, actually. Yeah.
But you can buy these from, I don't know, your Grove or Marley's Monsters or wherever. I'm sure you can get it at your like local crunchy store, whatever you have going on. And they are of various sizes and they kind of stretch to fit. And so it is basically like reusable Saran wrap. But I've had a few of them and you have to hand wash them because they're going to get all rumpled in the dishwasher and they can't really take the heat. And then also they just don't really they always feel like oily kind of to me. So I'm just not sure about that.
Looking up the name of it. I don't, I see. Can it reusable silicone stretch?
Yeah,
lids?
it's like a really thin.
I don't like this. No, nope,
right?
nope.
I know. That's
no,
how
we're
I feel
good.
Too.
I'm good. I promise you I will not be using single-use Saran wrap as a replacement, Julie and Hannah, but I'm not using food condoms either. Sorry. That looks weird to me.
There's some swaps that I'm just not making. And then our backup for mostly always leftovers is just old glass jars with ball lids, like just regular jar lids. We do a lot of storage in jars. Although I'm really having an issue these days where somehow I have a million lids and a lot of jars and none of them fit together. I'm having a real...
You need to have a day. This is a good winter project because when the spring comes, you're going to want to be doing bigger things or outdoor things or
canning
opening up window things or whatever. But on a winter day when you're watching one of your stories or something...
I just have to bring like a box of lids and jars and
set them down and just like maybe clean a surface and just it's going to be so satisfying.
Yeah, I'm going to feel a lot better when I know I only have jars and lids that match.
And then get rid of the rest or figure out a solution for the rest. I love that.
1,000,000%.
Now, you alluded to something that's going on in your house. You and I both, I guess we're in sort of different phases of it, but we're both kind of living in construction zones. You mentioned that you had a leaky roof, which I think is like, that's bad for a roof, right? You want roofs, like that's one of the things the roofs are supposed to do is not leak.
Ideally, the roof should keep the water out.
Yeah, that's what I read.
Yes, that's what I've always been raised to believe. I've always said that. And at one point during one of our atmospheric rivers, I think actually I was recording the podcast. And then as I was coming upstairs, Keith was like, we have a leak. And I was like, oh my God.
No.
Like some of the worst words you can hear. And in our vestibule, which if you're curious about what my vestibule looks like, I did make a video of it and it's on our Instagram where I was just like, this is this weird area of my house where all the rooms come together and the hallway just ends and there's like a little foyer kind of deal. So in that same area, we did in fact have a little drip from the ceiling. And it's because there was like a vent in the roof. that had slipped down, and so water was getting in it. It was getting into our attic, and then it was coming into our house. We're a double-story house, but the second story is underground. So the problem is we have asbestos, so we can't go into the attic really. And also, it's a fully unfinished attic. It's like beams and like asbestos insulation.
Look at your little built-in little nook thing. Yeah, I'm watching the video you made. Here, I love this. It's like a little. I thought it was going to be you talking, but you added this music.
I just put music over it.
Yes, I love that you have this little built-in. What would you call it? Like a little nook.
It's a nook. Yeah. There's a lot of little built-ins. Our house is very cute. It has that was one of the first things that ever.
There's another one. Yeah. This is very cute. I love it.
In the hallway, there's a little nook right at the end of it, and then there's a little sort of shelving thing. It's got this cool curved wall. Like our house has a lot.
I love the curved walls. We don't have a lot of little touches like that, but we have one little curved wall like that in our house, and it's like sometimes I hug it. I'm like, you're my little guy.
It was one of the first things I saw when we walked through the house originally to rent it, and then we bought it. And I was just like, I love these little like touches. Like it's a really, I do really love our little house.
That's nice. Very
but like
cute.
that's
Sorry
where the leak was too.
Oh shoot!
I know. So Keith was on the roof, like flex taping it and patching it up as best he could. We really didn't want to have to pay to get the whole roof redone. But then we were like, okay, we also don't know how much water is getting into our attic. So after the last big atmospheric river, it was like we just had to do it. So we got a new roof put on our house this week. And I was, of course, concerned about what that was going to mean for, one, both Keith and I working from home, and two, the dog. She was so good about the noises on the roof. I could not believe how little she cared about dudes on our roof, like, buh, buh, buh.
Hell from above.
I could not. And like a lot of the time she and I were down here in the basement, so it wasn't as bad.
Yeah.
But it was loud, and it was like we really thought we might have to go out of town or like have like Lola and I go work somewhere else, but it turned out pretty good.
Even the sound of people walking on your roof, because we had chimney repairs done a couple years ago or
when
whatever.
You don't
it's
have
just
an
a
upstairs,
weird feeling. Yeah, and you know, we had two cats at the time, and they were like always looking up, like, what is going on up there? And that wasn't even like the banging.
Yeah, it was. I could not believe how good she was with the noise, but it was when she would see the guys in the front yard. But so a big part of like the roofing project is it makes a fucking mess. Like it is a mess.
Yeah.
But our lovely roofers, not only did they go through with like they have this like roller, speaking of very specific cleanup tools for jobs, we've talked about this as a subject before. They have a roller that's a big magnet, and it rolls along and it picks up all the little screws and nails and any little magnetic-y thing that has come down. And so they're pushing it around, like vacuuming up the metal, basically. So that was really interesting. And then they also like fully like washed down, hosed off, swept up our driveway. Like our driveways never looked cleaner either. And so the cleanup they did around after the roofing was very impressive. And now our roof is done and we lived through it and it's great. And the driveway is super clean. And we're just hoping that we don't have any more leaks. But there was a period where things were a little hinky. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been talking for a while now about how we have this little kitchenette area in our basement, which is just like a little second area. It's not where we do most of our cooking, but and we appreciate having it. It's got a sink, a little hardly usable hot plate there, but just like it was set up because they kind of turned this basement area of this house into like another living space so they could rent it out, whoever owned this before us. But I think, as I was saying on another show, like I think what they turned into a so-called living space is kind of criminal. I'll bet you it literally was criminal by the codes of the city to turn this basement into like an actual rentable unit. And it was just done, everything was just done so cheaply and so poorly, including this little kitchenette area, which was just like whatever terrible, cheap, probably reuse countertop and cabinetry, and it's all falling apart and just like held together by just gobs of visible glue all over the place.
God.
Just like cabinet
The
doors that
worst
wouldn't open all the
job
way.
Of all time.
Oh, just disgusting looking, and then like cabinet doors that don't open all the way because they hit other cabinet doors or light fixtures that are just like thrown. It was just like a really, it was functional by the very lowest definition of that word. So anyway, it's always bothered me, and Vives and I kind of made a decision. We were talking about getting new flooring down here, which is still something we plan on doing, but we sort of paused that project, and I said, well, before we start talking about flooring, like, maybe we just take this moment to invest in this big project. We've never gone into like a big home renovation. And by a home renovation standards, you wouldn't maybe say this is big, but for us, this is very big.
I mean, you have guys in your house, yeah.
Yeah, we have guys in our house. It's going to cost tens of thousands of dollars. They rip everything out, and then we're rebuilding. And this, I'm so excited. They're going to build somehow these customized shelving units that will sort of, when we pull the doors out, we have these big, deep storage areas that are in the basement that are really more of like kind of a crawl space, but it's like these huge holes in the wall that I could crawl up into and literally sleep in if I wanted to. I couldn't stand in there, but they're just like big, but there's no shelving, there's no anyway. So we have them chock-a-block full of storage stuff, but he's the designer guy is going to like kind of build these things so that when we open the cabinet doors, it'll pull the whatever contraption he builds out for better storage. Like he's going to doing this whole thing. It's going to be. I'm so excited about what will be the kitchen eventually, but I get really anxious, as you will be unsurprised to hear, about the sort of transitional times in my living space. Like, this is a huge problem for me. Not only am I very lazy, Genevieve's really good at getting like house projects done, whereas I kind of like take way too long to do them or don't do them at all or wait until Genevieve does them. But then as far as even hiring somebody to do all of this and somebody who's really doing a lot of the design, kind of ushering us through the design process, and we're kind of, I don't know if most people do it this way. We're kind of building the airplane as we're flying it because he's kind of tearing everything out, but then to see like, well, what are our options here? And we're all like kind of like he's also taking care of, this is going to be probably the most expensive part potentially, but like our electrical situation is pretty rough in this house as far as like they were just like, whoever was like putting in this hot plate or this little stove thing and these other things were just like splitting off circuits, and like we've had people come in here and say like, don't use this outlet. Like there was a lot of scary things going on in the wall, so they're installing a whole new breaker board that is like bigger than our current breaker board, and so they're doing like some pretty hardcore electrical for this project as well. But it will be so nice. Like everybody who comes over to work on the house looks at our breaker board and they're like, what were these folks thinking? Like what, none of this makes any sense. Man. You hear that a lot anyway, but this time I think it's especially chaotic. So that's a big part of this project. So this is going to be a big kind of expensive thing. We've never done this before, and while I was sort of the instigator for this, though as usual most of the responsibility falls to Genevieve. As the dates got closer, I was kind of like, so we're just ripping out the sink. Like, I'm just going to be without my sink for a long time in my cupboards. And where am I going to store all this stuff? And like, and we're getting through it. But a big part of it for me is also just like, how much is this going to disrupt my life? And I don't even mean like the noise when I'm trying to record a podcast. Like, we can get through that, and it's all part of the adventure of podcasting. But like, it's more like at the end of the day when all the workers go home, like, do I still have my living space, the things that make me comfortable, the area where I play darts or kick back to watch TV? Is it going to be? I'm not comfortable if I have to step over all of our luggage that we pulled out of the wall or weird canisters of, I don't know, the hot chocolate mix that I need for my volunteer gig, but where does it live now that I've lost a big chunk of storage space? And it's all temporary, and it's all going towards a much better outcome where we're going to be so much happier. And I got to tell myself that, but I'm just like,
but you haven't seen the outcome yet. This is the thing.
Yeah.
It's really hard, especially like you say, when you're, sort of building it in the air, is you don't know what it's going to look like. And because you can't picture your life with it, all you can think is like, now I don't, even though before it was deeply imperfect, I currently don't have my life with this area intact as it was, even though it was bad. And it is true about like home reno stuff. And Keith and I just became homeowners for the first time like a couple years ago. It was like incredible that we could do that. But a big part of it is that when you start doing those additional projects, we had a similar situation where we were upgrading to a heat pump because we didn't have any kind of cooling. And in the era of climate change, like you really do need some kind of cooling of some sort in the Pacific Northwest now. So we were getting a heat pump. And to do that, we had to also upgrade the electrical panel. And to do that, we had there were so many steps that had to happen, and it does add up cost-wise, it does add up time-wise, it adds up with just like days where guys are walking through your house, and if you have pets, you have to make sure they're secured.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It really does throw off your everyday routine. And I know this, like, we are looking into eventually having our kitchen remodel because it is outdated and it doesn't work in a lot of ways, and the cabinets are hideous, and like there's all these other things. But I'm with you where the idea of the day in of it, of not having a kitchen and having everything displaced, like what, and I think per the top of our episode, I think it hits me more because that is a space that I use every single day for so many things.
Yeah,
right?
your kitchen, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so when you're in that state of things are in disarray and it throws off your routine, there is something about it that it just feels, you feel like you're in limbo. You know, you're just kind of stuck.
And that's what I had anxiety about that. Now we're a couple of days into this project, and I will tell you that so far it's been good. And this is kind of what I'm building up to, is like, it's a big deal for us to, hire this person, put down a very big deposit, a big chunk of money, right? And you're just like, okay, I hope this person, and the person that we hired seems great, and I really think that he and the people he ends up working with throughout this project are going to do a really good job. We're having a great experience with them, but he's a very strange communicator, and like you can ask a simple question, and instead, I know how this sounds coming from me, but you ask a very simple yes or no question, and it begins like a story that will lead into 4 other stories, and you never get an answer at the end, and you don't even know what the stories were about. And again, lovely person, but just has that kind of mind. But also, I think has that kind of mind because I think he's going to have a great design sensibility and might be whatever side-brained that
probably,
is.
Like wants to fill you in on all the details so that you understand. Like, this is why I'm making this decision.
Yeah.
This is how I know that this is the thing. This is like imparting that knowledge on you. But also, you are like, there's so much other knowledge I don't have around this that this is perhaps not the context I require.
So the first day the work begins, we don't even know yet what we're replacing it with, but it's the demo work. And so he and a guy come here. I think this is it's on Thursday, because I know I need to do my regular podcast in the morning and then book it out of here to go to KOW to do some other work stuff. And then I just had a rare day where I was doing stuff out of the house most of the day. So Genevieve stayed home and worked from home that day to sort of usher some of this stuff in and kind of manage things. But Genevieve, when I leave, they're like under the sink disconnecting pipes, so things don't look that different. A few hours later, I'm having lunch in the University District, and I'm getting a video from Genevieve, like everything is gone. Like in our house, like everything is pulled out, and like it's amazing to see. And also, by the way, speaking of like just being able to tell how shitty of a job it was installed, like littering the ground are not just 1 or 2 shims to keep things right as you're going to need. I mean, dozens and dozens of shims that are like duct tape, not even duct tape, masking taped together into these. They were just like, and they said that the whole thing was kind of held up with like kind of crappy glue or something. But
you didn't even realize you were living in Shim City.
Shim City, forget it. Shim City. Anyway, so they pull all this stuff out, and I'm kind of, I've just been a little bit anxious, maybe low level anxious about this. Again, mostly excited about the project, and I'm worried about how I'm going to feel when I feel that our space is all torn up and I'm going to be in a state of limbo for a while. And again, I keep telling Genevieve, and maybe I'm just kind of telling myself this as a reminder, how lucky we are. We have this is a kitchenette area that is not essential to our life. We've never had the privilege of having a second kitchenette area or a second kitchen sink, which is so huge. And so and also not only is it a blessing because we're choosing to do this to our secondary area, which isn't necessary for normal life, but it's also we're not compelled to do it. We're not dealing with a broken pipe that exploded in the middle of the night or
you're
even a
opting
leaky
into this.
roof.
It's not an emergency. You got to take your time and make the choices. Yes.
Yeah, and so I'm reminding myself of that. And then, but I am like, hey, when I come home, how's it going to feel to have all this ripped out? And I get home and the workers are gone and everything. And Hannah, and this is maybe the point of my long-winded story is, all of my anxiety about, hey, did we hire the right people? Are we doing the right thing? Are we spending the right amount of money, all this stuff? How am I going to feel about all this? I come downstairs where my kitchen used to be, and everything is ripped up, torn away. They've moved everything out into the garage, and it is so clean. I mean, it is a construction, area, but it is impeccably clean. There's our little shop vac there. They were using our shop vac, which is great. Genevieve gave them the shop vac. There's some sort of power tool that is in a little a carrying case, little briefcase thing. And then I think there were 4 tools next to it of sort of equal length, like a long hammer, a crowbar, and 2 other things. And they were lined up neatly on the ground, one next to the other, next to the other, next to the other. And there is something about like it was a little like a Wes Anderson knolling shot or something of it. And I was just like, it's such a small thing. And I think that the main guy picked up on the fact that I'm a bit of a neat freak, but also it might just be him as well. There's everybody we've met so far has been so unbelievably kind and conscientious as they come into our space, and then also just to leave their workspace that way, they are so meticulous and careful. And coming home that first day when I had some anxiety about how this was going to make me feel, that was such a signal to me that put me at ease in a way that maybe I don't have a brain that works as well as it should, but I really appreciated that these folks were conscientious of that, or just conscientious of what it's like to disrupt somebody's space, and so they left it as clean as possible, and it really meant the world, and it made me feel so good about the project.
That's so good. I love that so much. I know that is like how do they leave it at the end of the day? How are they? And our roofers were similar, where during the day we couldn't really use a couple of the doors because like they were working above our head and then dropping stuff down, and there was a tarp down, and Lola was very weirded out that she couldn't just go into the backyard whenever she wanted, but I was like, I don't know what's out there and I want to let them work. But at the end of every day they would clean up everything. They were they were really, really great. Also, so on Thursday I was doing some stuff for my real job, and I was at a couple of volunteering events, and at one of them they had a stack of red cards. Do you know from red cards?
No.
So red cards are these little, like half an index card basically, and it's instructions for what to say if you get stopped by like ice.
Oh, yeah.
And they have them in a lot of different languages, and so I picked up a stack of them in Spanish and like brought them back to our roofers because I was just like, hey man, things are bad. Take these with you. And the guy was like very appreciative, and then one of the guys like took a picture of it and sent it to his wife and was like, good. So that was also like because we were very, very aware that like we were having guys do work on our house who were very apparently, they were not white dudes, and I spoke to them mostly in Spanish, and so like that part of it too, that I was like, they were so mindful and so conscientious and so cool, and at the same time knowing they were doing their job under an extra level of duress, I just had so much respect for the work they were doing.
Yeah, they're literally pulling people off of roofing jobs.
Yeah.
It is. I can't even begin to talk about that right now because we will.
I know, but also if you're a person who's getting work done on your house, you can order red cards. I believe I think the website is redcardorders.com, and you can order a stack of them and give them to the people that you meet who might need them, and it's a very small thing you can do. So, in addition to living in construction zones, what else is going on?
We're also living in an occupied territory, occupied by our own government. So what I want to do here is check in with the scrub jockeys. We have some voicemails to share here. I want to remind people how they can get a hold of us. The phone number is 508-469-9274. That's 508-HOW-WASH, as in, how do I wash this thing? Or I'll tell you how to wash this thing. 508-HOW-WASH. You can email us voice memos, spotlesspod@gmail.com, or on Instagram, YouTube. And we have a website. The website is spotlesspod.com. Look for Spotless Pod on the social medias. I am excited to get into these voicemails because I'm going to need your help deciphering some of them.
Clean as a whistle, fresh as a daisy, brand new, clean through. Start my day off wearing a great big smile.
Okay, so I have a voicemail here from your mom that I need to set up a little bit. Also, I need to find the file because I apparently saved it in the wrong place. But don't worry, everything is going to go smoothly here. But your mom, of course, is listener number one. The reason we like to assign numbers to our listeners is because your mom started referring to herself as number one listener, and that started the whole thing. And I love that. And we also have a listener who is, I think, listener number 9. We'll find out here in a second, who is, yes, that's my friend Anna in the Greenwood neighborhood, and she is indeed number 9. And so listener number 9, Anna in Greenwood, on our last show, shared a voicemail about food odors in the house, which is something we've been talking about because it's wintertime and most of us are keeping our windows closed, which means food odors, which can build up anyway or building up even more. In fact, Hannah, we on TBTL last week talked about a term called, or a process or a habit that they call house burping. there's a German word for it, lüften or something, where
What?
there's a tradition where it's like once a day or evening at the same time every day, like people just open up all the windows in their house, no matter how cold it is. Let everything air out. That just which I love that idea. Genevieve's been cooking a lot of tofu in the house, which is
there was
to
just
me
a New York Times article about it. Okay, I see.
Yeah, the lüfting thing. Yeah, that's all over the place. I think I like tofu, but I think it's one of the stinkiest dishes to make. And I've noticed that Genevieve thinks it's more the oil. When she fries it. Yes, when she's frying it.
Wait, have you air fried tofu yet? Because it works
no,
really good in the air fryer.
Oh, that's
I have
probably
been
a better
air frying
idea.
tofu, and it is so much easier and less stink. Yeah, because the oil.
Yeah.
It is the oil, and then
That's
also
what she says.
I feel like with tofu, especially when you fry it, it also is just the splatteriest, like the mess. You have to drape a tarp all around your kitchen. It is so messy. So air frying. Anyway,
that's been on my mind too, because Anna shared this really interesting story. She said that she had gone to bed, and her son, who's her adult son, who's a night owl and was staying with her, like was cooking up some food that included, I believe, shrimp and some other things, like in the middle of the night. And she said it totally woke her up, and she could not get back to sleep, just like the smell of the house. And so your mom, number one listener, called in to reference that, and she also called in to reference something else. And I don't think I've ever been so befuddled by a voicemail. I have no idea what she's talking about, and I was hoping that maybe you could help with that. But let's start with your mom's reaction to Anna's story about house smells.
Okay. Good morning. This is number 1. I'd like to talk to number 9 and number 4. Anna in Greenwood.
So you see why I had to explain the number 9, number 4 situation.
And number 4 is my little sister.
That's right. That's right. So number 9 and number 4
yes,
we're coming
my mother's
in hot.
other daughter.
Number 1 is coming in hot for number 9 and number 4.
Good morning. This is number 1. I'd like to talk to number 9 and number 4. Anna in Greenwood. If you ever have this situation again, I know exactly what you're talking about because I was asleep and Hannah's dad was reheating chicken in the air fryer and I was asleep, because we have different, because I'm nocturnal. Anyway, I'm much
to
like
be
your son.
To be fair, to my dad,
probably noon.
Bare minimum, it was noon. It was more likely 2 in the afternoon. So, a regular time to be in your own home cooking chicken. But
as somebody who is a night owl myself, I love that your mom has the ability and the life that she can do that. Like, that's great.
She goes to bed at 5 o'clock in the morning. She just lives life,
She's living her life.
Because we have different, because I'm nocturnal. Anyway, I'm much like your son up in the middle of the night. He's a daytime person. Anywho's it. I looked up one time for Hannah about orders when they first started talking about this, and now I keep getting these targeted ads and news articles, and what they keep saying is, if this ever happens again and you get like a smell that's in the house, this is basically for everybody, boil rosemary and orange peels in some water quickly. Pot. Like they were talking about, Andrew and Hannah were talking about potpourri. That was the point of it, was that it would fragrance the house all the time.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? And those two smells, I wonder if throw in some cinnamon, too.
Yeah, because a lot of people will do, especially in the wintertime, a simmer pot, where you do kind of the same thing, and it is...
Cloves.
Yeah, and much like an oil burner, what you're doing is you're heating and, sort of like atomizing the scents around the house. The problem with doing something like a simmer pot or heating water with scents in it for me is I will forget and I will ruin that pot or burn my house down. Like I cannot
once
be trusted.
Once the water evaporates.
I can see where this would go wrong in my life, and I would put a pot on and I would have the best intentions, but knowing myself, I would leave. I'd probably go walk the dog and be gone for an hour and come back and be like, what's that now awful smell? Oh, it's the burning pot.
Because all the water's gone and now we're just burning peels. Although I eat so much citrus, and I've been, and maybe because wintertime I'm doing it even triply so now, so I'm eating like so many oranges and grapefruits that I'm actually, I'd never thought of this, I'd never heard of this before, but I might save some of my peels. We have a little rosemary bush. It's still relatively small, but enough that I decided to make some potatoes kind of spur of the moment as a side dish the other night, and I was like, I could really use some rosemary. And I was like, I got some in the yard.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's great. So I could easily, because that's what your mom said, rosemary, right? And orange peels.
Yes.
And you could also throw in, like I mentioned, cloves or so other things.
Whatever else you have around.
I might mess around with this.
So here's a question, though. and I don't have one, but if you had like a crock pot, I wonder if you could use a crock pot and then not have to do it on the stove with like the open.
That's interesting.
You know,
yeah,
flame
especially
of
because
the
we have
heat,
flame.
because you have gas, right? I wonder about using something like a crock pot to do it.
Except a crock pot, doesn't a crock pot have to stay closed? Maybe not.
Well, I wonder. That's the thing is, I don't eat meat, so I literally have never I've never in my life used a crock pot. I just know it's basically like a double boiler essentially. Or a double burner. And so I wonder if you could leave it, because obviously when you make stuff in a crock pot, it smells up the house.
Yeah.
This is
that's
how
the
we
best thing.
originate some of these smells that then later we don't like. So I wonder if you could use that and then you wouldn't have to keep an eye on it. But you also are a more attentive person than I am and would not forget your simmer pot. So.
And I would never leave the house like you do. Okay, so
Right,
that
there's
is
that.
the.
Okay.
So I love that. By
Yes.
the way, Julie, I love that, and I might check that out because that speaks to me. And again, those scents that you mentioned also have a good wintry smell to them. I think
Yeah.
so. Okay, and then something about listener number 4, which is your sister.
Yeah.
Before the melty pot things were invented. Okay, so that's the one thing. And then the other one, number 4, is, if I'm right, Andrew, check the spreadsheet. It should be Hannah's sister Emma.
It is, yeah.
She's on Reddit, and she ought to drop the at Thoughtless Pod place to find people,
Yes. I know what you're saying, Mom.
into a Reddit conversation.
Yes.
About, once a week or so. So, also, other numbers could do this too.
What is
Maybe number 2. I don't know.
So-
Paige, are you on Reddit? Okay, great. Love the show. Love to look at Hannah. And Andrew, too. Bye.
So I thought maybe listening to it a second time, I'd have some idea what we're talking about, and I still don't know. I don't remember your sister calling in recently, in fact.
She didn't. But so what my mom is saying is, and this is also germane because I was just looking up like simmer pot recipes, and one of the first things that came up was our cleaning tips from about 2 years ago. Someone asking, what are your favorite simmer pot recipes? And what she's talking...
Wait, we've talked about simmer pots before?
No. It was on the subreddit, on the Our Cleaning Tips subreddit.
Oh, okay. I was
Which
gonna
we
say,
talked about
I'm
a few
losing
weeks
my
ago.
mind.
No, we
Okay.
fell into the Our Cleaning Tips rabbit hole a few weeks ago.
Yes,
and one of the things
okay.
that I noticed was that there's a bunch of posts asking, what do you listen to while you're cleaning, or are there good cleaning podcasts? And I said,
okay.
our listeners need to go into Reddit and recommend our podcast because
I don't remember that. Okay.
I'm not going to be a person who goes in and drops my own link. And so then what my mother is
Yes.
instructing my sister to do is recommend Spotless when she's on Reddit. So
Oh,
that's-
I do remember you saying
Yes.
at one point, well, I don't want to go in and self-promote, so
Yes.
other people have to do it for us. I do recall that now. Okay, so yeah, but see, this is the thing. My brain is so bad, I can't remember what we've talked about on the show. I mean, I don't want to make excuses for myself. My brain is bad for a lot of reasons, because of the way I was born, because of the way I treat my brain, and also, this is the excuse part, I do a lot of talking into microphones, and it is difficult to remember where and when something happened. And Genevieve gave me one of the best gifts the other day as we sat down to record an episode of After These Messages, our podcast about commercials. Somebody had called or written in to say, hey, you were looking for commercials on this topic. And I asked Genevieve, I'm like, why were we looking for commercials on that topic? And she said, I have no idea. And it was just a week earlier, and I felt so vindicated.
Yeah.
Just knowing that it's not just my brain. Like, Genevieve has a good brain, right? We
She
can
has
all
a good
agree
memory,
Genevieve
yeah.
has a good brain, and she didn't remember
She
either.
is
So
also,
sometimes
by the way,
this
I
happens.
just want to say, I don't know if the listeners know this about Genevieve, but I just want to give her her props, and I know she doesn't listen because she hears you talk all the time. But she has become quite the seamstress. She has
my
been
God,
doing
yeah.
so many sewing projects, and some of the things she's making is amazing, and it has really made me want to get back into doing sewing projects because she's really been inspiring me. And I just think
literally
that's
my
very cool.
favorite shirt she made. It's a button-down shirt that sometimes I'll just be wearing it, and I'll say, hey, do you like this shirt, to a random stranger? And they'll say, yeah. And I'll say, my girlfriend made this. They're like, nobody
love
can
that.
make that. And I'm like, yes, somebody made it.
human
It's like a
person
professional,
in my
a
home.
human person that I live
And
with.
she
who has a good
thrifts a
brain.
ton of the material too, which is so
Yep.
cool. And
loves
so
it. It's
I
her
just wanted
passion.
to give Genevieve props for her sewing projects. She's been really great about putting them on Instagram, and I love it. So there's that.
And you know what? Let me do this. Since we're
But she does have a
pitching
good
this.
brain because sewing does take a good brain. You have to really
Yes.
doing a
Jesus.
sewing project and using a pattern can get really hinky. So that's
think
I just
she-
want to say.
I think she'll be okay with me doing this. If you want to see the project she works on, if this speaks to you, Genevieve is on Instagram, and she posts her projects there. And her name on Instagram, I don't know if I've ever told you this. I'm going to have you guess why this is her name on Instagram. Her name on Instagram is BA Base. It's spelled BEE
I have always wondered.
Beays. Beaybys. It's BA based. Do you have any idea?
No, and I've always wondered.
I think you will find this interesting. This goes back decades now when I was living in New Hampshire and she was up visiting in New Hampshire from Boston, and we, with a small group of friends, went to a karaoke bar. And this is before karaoke was as popular as it is now. Not that it wasn't nowhere, but we were living in this rural area, and we went to this Chinese restaurant way out on this rural road, kind of near where I lived, and you could go through the restaurant, and then in the back was one of those old school Chinese bars, right? That used to be in the back of old school restaurants. And they have a karaoke KJ back there who is a Spanish speaker. And Genevieve, instead of putting her name Genevieve on the slip, puts her nickname Vives. Vieves.
Oh my goodness.
And we're sitting there having our zombie drinks or whatever we're drinking. And then Genevieve sort of realizes, wait, somebody keeps calling BA bass. And then we realize, oh, that's Vives. That's Vives in Spanish. BA bass. You look at the V, you pronounce it like BA bass. So that is why Genevieve's name on Instagram is BA bass, spelled out phonetically.
I have always wondered about that, and I love it so much. Oh my God,
it's a good nickname, right?
So good
to go from Genevieve to Vives, which is kind of an unusual one anyway.
Right.
I think that me and my friend Paul just started calling her Vives at some point, and now for it to shift into BA bass.
Oh my God,
I love that. Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
Listeners, though, if you want some sewing inspo, she's doing incredible work. It's so much fun. And so I just wanted to recognize that. But it is very nice when somebody else doesn't remember something. I know that there is a very specific instance of this in my relationship because I am things like a simmer pot I will forget, but I will remember things that happened years. Like my memory is wild. The things that I remember and like the specificity of it is like it's very interesting. But there is one time, so Keith is convinced that I have watched a movie, and I'm like, no, I've never seen this movie. And he's like, no, we watched it together. And I am 100% convinced I've never seen this film. And I feel like he felt really good, and now I can't even remember what the movie is, but I feel like he felt. Know. Well, so I know it happened one time with the movie The Rock, like with Sean Connery and Nick Cage. And that time I was convinced I'd never seen it, but it was because it was on when we were in London, and we were A, pretty drunk, and 2, very sleep deprived. And I basically had forgotten that we watched it in the hotel room because I just fell asleep immediately, but I was like kind of only a little asleep. And he's like, no, we watched it in the hotel room. I was like, I think you watched it, and I passed out. So that was
the one where Nick Cage has these green balls in some sort of a canister. He's got to very carefully pull them out. It's very satisfying. It's like a bunch of green balls that are sort of but it's explosive or something.
It's
He's
the
got to
Escape
carefully
from Alcatraz movie.
Yeah.
Again, I allegedly
I've never
seen
it all the way through. Genevieve loves it.
But there are these moments where, when it's a lapse in my memory, I feel like Keith is so vindicated, and he feels so like because he will tell you he's not like, he doesn't have the best memory. Like it just is not. I don't know. He remembers, his brain is taken up with things like music and cable management and remembering which side is up on the scissors. Whereas I don't think any one side is up on a scissors. I don't know. It's a fucking scissors.
Well, that's because you have tiny little rat hands. Because for me, I can only fit my hand into scissors one way, because the one, if you're going to use the two, right? Because one of the finger holes is bigger than the other. Yeah,
which is also why when I mentioned
you can use it either way.
Yeah. I don't just the scissors. It was also when I mentioned to Keith that there was such a thing as left-handed scissors. He was like, "No, there is. How could a scissors be right or left-handed?" I was like, "Because the big hole, like the big hole, is on the other side for if you used your left hand with it, right? Because I would use a right-handed scissors. But I mentioned that my grandfather had left-handed scissors when I was a kid, and he was like, "How can that be?" And I was like, "You're the guy who has a firm belief about one side being up on a scissors, so."
That's really interesting.
Yes,
so it has to do with the way the sharp bevel is on the scissors, and the other side of the scissors is more straight. Yeah.
So you can watch this on YouTube because we do record this for YouTube as well. Yeah. So like this is a right-handed scissors, right? Yeah. And you put the two fingers in the one and the thumb in the other. But if I tried to do this with my left hand, I can do it because I have tiny little hands.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
But other people, and also the way that it faces, because if like this, but now. If you wanted it to be like that, that's like harder. So
Okay, I don't know what you're talking about anymore, but that's okay. All right, let's shift things back into the Scrub Jockey zone here, and we got a voicemail from Kyler regarding the Pride and Prejudice scene, so this has been kind of an ongoing conversation. I brought this up on the show. I don't know why this is important, but I just want to let everybody know that I have read Pride and Prejudice. Kyler mentions that I'd only watched it, but I have read the book and watched both the BBC and the Hollywood version of the movie.
Wow.
It's just been a while for me. This was like probably 15 years ago or something when I got kind of into it. But we had talked about the famous scene where Elizabeth, near the beginning of the book, goes traipsing across the muddy field to go see her sister, who was visiting a new gentleman, but then fell ill, and so she wanted to go be with her sister. But then she shows up, and she's sort of mocked by the women in the house because she shows up. You know, she did something very unladylike by by walking exactly, and traipsing through the mud like that. Anyway, Kyler did have an update to that. Kyler also apologizes too much, I would say. So don't apologize. I think this is a wonderful addition to the dialogue regarding this.
Hello, this is Kyler from Seattle. I apologize for carrying the Pride and Prejudice topic into another episode, so hopefully you'll forgive me on that, and hopefully you'll finally read the book, because it's actually surprisingly great. Anywho, this discussion started because Andrew mentioned that the bottom of Elizabeth's dress was extremely dirty in the film adaptation, and I wanted to bring this back to the cleaning topic that the podcast is actually made for. Last year, I met with the director of the Costumes and Textiles Collection at the Chicago History Museum to look at one of my ancestors.
You're nodding. You know about this?
Yeah, so Kyler is a friend of mine. I've known her for forever. She's amazing. And we met doing college radio. And so she just has a very sweet place in my heart. And she was recently doing a bunch of ancestry work because her family in Chicago is fascinating. And so she went, and she's been sort of chasing down all of these really interesting areas that her family was involved in. And so and because she's Kyler is, I would say, a very thorough person. Like, she does not half-ass things. If she's doing it, she's doing it all the way. And so she went to Chicago, and she was meeting with all these people and really learning a lot, and I've been loving watching her go through it. So I do know about this, but I cannot wait to hear what she has to say.
This is very interesting.
The Costumes and Textiles Collection at the Chicago History Museum to look at one of my ancestors' wedding dresses. And she mentioned that in the 1800s, a line of lace was often sewn into the inside of a dress or a skirt at the bottom because the lace was viewed as something that could be easily removed and cleaned or replaced. And so that would be kind of what would get dirty and what got dirty in Pride and Prejudice. And so they would also do this with the necklines and the sleeves because those were also at greater risk of getting dirty. And dress cleaning was much less common or not possible because of the silk that they would use.
Right.
And the various materials, the wool and whatever the dresses were made out of. So this would allow dresses to last longer and be reworn. So now whenever I watch old movies or TV shows, I'm always looking for that. And now you will be too. Thanks. Sorry for the long message.
No.
And have a great day.
I do not
reject your apology. Yeah. This is a fantastic voicemail because this is really right where I live. I love these details about how things become in fashion based on function and the functionality of cleaning. And I didn't think about this really at the time when we talked about this a few weeks ago, but yeah, cleaning, I mean, most people did not launder their clothes, certainly the way we do now. And so the idea of just removing, the hem or removing the ruffle or, I know this is why, petticoats, underdresses were also common and why you could see the bottom of a petticoat because if the actual dress, whether it's made of, like you said, wool or silk or broadcloth or whatever it is, and it's heavy, right? Think about the weight of organic materials like that. and you probably didn't even have a bucket big enough to put it in if you even would want it to touch water.
Right.
Again, silk.
Imagine how heavy it would be afterwards.
Right. Could you imagine a wool dress? Like, I think about when I pull my weighted blanket out of the washing machine. Like, I have to be very specific about how I wash my weighted blanket because it will become too heavy and the washer will stop working because the load is so heavy because it's just a ton of heavy cotton. And so I think that's such an interesting point that, like, that's where the style of lace or a ruffle or a petticoat comes from, is because if you, like, dragged your sleeve through soup, you could just, like, nip that off and then put new, you know, tatting or whatever on the end. That is so interesting. I love that so much. What an interesting thing to learn, and what a great way to share with us. I love that so much.
This is going to be a very dark place to take it,
Great.
but when I think about the weight of those dresses, do you remember the book The Awakening? It was something that I know I read in like a women's lit class in like college or something. And it's the one that has the very iconic ending where a woman... I don't remember the plot. It's probably one of those where the male-dominated world basically drives a woman insane,
Yes.
although I'm not entirely sure. But basically the book ends with her walking out into the
Yes.
ocean and
Yes.
drowning. And I always think about that because it seems like such a this is such a dark place to take it.
Fine.
So my apologies. So trigger warnings for this type of conversation. But it just has always seemed like a very inefficient way to end your life, because your will to survive will always overcome, right?
Right.
You'll swim, you'll
Yes.
try, you know, but it's the dress, I
Yes.
think. It's the dress. The
Yes.
dress it's a death sentence if you walk out in the ocean in that.
I mean, that's how Virginia Woolf did it too, but she put rocks in her pockets for the same reason.
Oh, is that true?
I think so. Pretty sure.
Oh, yeah. So
that's
anyway,
what I-
I'm
that's
sorry
what I
to
always
take.
heard.
I
No,
regret.
think
I
that
regret taking the conversation there. But
so-
when I think of heavy dresses,
Wait, so this is actually a thing though, because for a long time, the survival tip, if you were like a fisherman or you were out at sea, was to, if you fell in, immediately begin shedding any layers
Oh,
you had.
yeah.
And this was actually something that happened on the Titanic, was people were layering on because they knew it was cold. And they knew they were going to go into the water, and that was going to be really cold. But like, they put on all these layers of down and wool, and then as soon as they get into the water, not only is their system shocked by the cold, but they've got like 80 pounds of wet wool on them.
Yep.
And so that is actually, it is very counterintuitive. But the advice for a really long time was, if you go overboard, you take off the extra layers, because at least that way you have a better chance of being able to like swim. So that is true. That's actually it is dark, but it is a good point. The weight of materials is something to consider. And definitely when you think about like how to clean those kinds of things, yeah, like think about how sopping wet, you know, a wool winter gown, like, and pre-dry
my God.
cleaning.
Right.
I wonder too, so we've talked in previous years ago on this pod, we also talked about cleaning with snow.
yeah,
Talked about how you can clean a rug with
throw
snow.
the carpet or the rug. You put it upside down. You beat the hell out of it in the snow.
And the snow like cakes to it, and then it comes off, and it brings. I'm curious if anybody right now, I know the East Coast is getting hard hit by a storm. If any of our listeners are cleaning in the snow, I would love to hear about this, because I feel like you could do that with a wool dress too. I bet, if you didn't want to get it like all the way wet.
Oh, that's
know?
interesting.
I
But
wonder if
yeah,
like
but
you could.
I would take it to a dry cleaner.
Well, I mean, sure, yes, but I am curious if anybody is utilizing the snow right now to clean any of their rugs, and if so,
Imagine going to a dry cleaner and you just hear a bunch of pounding and shouting from the back of the store, and you go back
around
and
back.
they're just beating the shit out of your clothes in the snow. It's like, that's not what it's not dry cleaning. It's quite the opposite.
I mean,
by the way,
whacking your clothes with a stick was a really pretty efficient way to get a lot of dust and dirt out of. I know on the Oregon Trail, that's how they cleaned a lot of their clothes, was just whacking them with a stick.
yeah, people also died of diarrhea on the Oregon Trail.
I know.
I've played the game.
In those
I've
heavy
played
dresses, by the way.
game. That's right.
So,
Ooh.
sorry to think about that.
Sorry. Ooh. Okay, so by the way, I checked our records. Listener Kyler, your friend in Seattle, is not on our list of numbered listeners. So
Girl, what
even
number do you
though
want?
she didn't request it, I'm going to go ahead and slot Kyler in at number 32. Is that okay?
Yes, but I guarantee you she's going to have a feeling about what number she wants. Again, she's a very thorough,
All
very
right.
specific person.
All right.
So,
then I'm going to
temporary
take it
32.
out. Nope.
Okay.
I'm taking it
All right,
out.
Kyler, tell us the number you want.
Because we're basically solid through one, who's your mom, as we've discussed, through 31.
Okay.
And then we have number 33. That everybody knows that's Eddie in Houston. And so we just had 32 as the first open number.
Yeah.
And then after that, we have spots here and there because people were picking numbers. So 32 would be the next one, sort of in order. But I don't need. I'm sorry, Kyler. I did not mean to shackle you with that. Just let us know what you want.
If you're a listener and you feel really strongly about 32, also now's the time to get it. Is the other reminder.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
But also, Kyler, call and tell us what number you want, because I guarantee you have a feeling about a number that you would want, or a number you absolutely would not want anywhere near you. So,
okay, now last thing. I am going to suggest, unless you feel very strongly after I get done reading this that you want to weigh in on this, because we're going a little bit long, I'm going to read an email from somebody who needs help.
Okay.
Desperately.
All right.
Cleaning help. I am not personally in a position to offer any non-obvious help here.
Sure.
So I thought I might read this email from Arian, and then, if I'm pronouncing that right, which I hope I am, and then maybe let the scrub jockeys think about it for 2 weeks and get back with us with some of their tips, because this is about laundry, okay?
Okay.
And I love doing laundry, but I don't have a lot of hacks or whatever. I just do laundry my way. Arian says, help! 3 exclamation points on that help. I hope I was able to read it in a way that you could tell that was 3 exclamation points. Help! My fella recently switched jobs, which has been great for his mental health, but terrible for my olfactory health.
No. You have a
At his
stinky
previous job, uniforms and laundry service were provided. Now I am providing the laundry service. Oh, I should mention, he is a heavy diesel mechanic. Today he accidentally took a diesel shower and also came home covered in grease. What do you suggest to A, get these clothes clean, and B, get the stink out? Internet said things like vinegar and baking soda or Dawn dish soap. That's always the first thing the internet says, by the way. I've had mediocre results with these. Oh, and of course, he usually needs these cleaned by the next day, so soaking isn't really an option. Thank you for any and all help. Love the pod. Now, this is the next day, we have 1 day turnaround on this. We don't have at least 2 uniforms.
Yeah, we need more uniforms. So
we
step
need
1,
at least
more
3.
uniforms.
If this is a 5 or 6 or 7 day a week job, we need at least 1 or 2 more uniforms.
We got to add some more uniforms in the rota for sure. We need, just so that you're not doing it. This is a lot for you, Ariane.
This is a lot.
And so this sounds like too much. So, but 2 things I'll say. 1, I'm going to call in my mother. This is your time to shine.
Does she have a listener number?
I don't know. You have to check the list. Because both my grandfather and my great-grandfather were mechanics. And so there's somewhere clanging around on the back of her head. My mom has some advice for how old Mexican ladies would clean mechanic clothes. Guarantee she has a tip on that. Number 2, top of my head, I would probably recommend borax because I feel like it's going to do the job. Okay. Also because I know that borax hand soap is very common in areas where people are working with grease specifically.
Yep.
So I feel
really gritty in the hand. They use it as hand soap, and
I also feel like if more uniforms is not an option, or we just need to deal with killing the smell right now and soaking we can't do, I really wonder about the old theater trick of watered down vodka in a spray bottle.
Oh wow!
I don't know if that would be a problem with the diesel.
Diesel, yeah.
I'm not a chemist. I don't know. I don't think that would cause a reaction that would harm anything. So look into this. But those are my initial first thoughts. But I think someone in our audience, Mom, but also some others, might have some good tips on this. So tell us, how do you clean a mechanic's uniform?
The only thing that I could think of, and I don't know if this is doable or not, would be latex. As in, change the uniform to a latex uniform. And you can be as sexy as you want about this.
Yeah,
frankly.
like a cat suit, really.
I was picturing Catwoman, something along those lines. If you want the little tail, I don't know if that's dangerous in the work situation or not. I don't see how 2 little cat ears on the top could be dangerous. But again,
it could be dangerous because of how cute he looks. So I don't know if that's something you want to play with.
But putting that aside, putting the look aside, which is also great, I just think that you come home and you just wipe that all down, or you just jump in the shower, right?
Just a rubber suit.
I think just a rubber suit. So anyway, I'm glad that you came to us with this.
I would ask, though, Scotch Guard. You might be able to Scotch Guard.
Oh.
To make, it kind of more like an
oilcloth.
oilcloth.
I don't know if I know what Scotch Guard is.
It's what you spray on boots and coats to make them waterproof, where it's basically it's a really thin layer of basically like a plastic of sorts that makes water like bead off them. And so you can put it on shoes. We used to Scotch guard my shoes when I was a kid, like all the time, just to keep the water out. And it's like right. Am I correct in this? I think I'm correct.
Probably, it sounds right. You brought back a memory for me. I forgot when I used to get new leather boots. When I was a kid, we didn't use anything that was a spray, but I remember my dad had a bottle of something that was called like waterproofing, and it had like this dauber that you would stick in there with, and then you would pull it out, and it was like cotton or something, and I would just sit there and I would have to waterproof my leather boots and shoes before I wore them. Yeah.
Yes. So Scotchgard is a 3M brand, and it's a spray-on repellent for fabrics, upholsteries, and carpets, and it blocks stains and repels liquids. So this is, I also would wonder if, like, when you first get a new uniform, could you hit it with Scotchgard just to maybe help? Because, like, we used to do it with our, like, woolly coats, like, winter coats that weren't really waterproof. Because, like, we live in the Northwest. Everything gets wet. And so my whole life we would use, I'm sure we were using, like, discount, whatever, grocery outlet brand Scotchgard. But yeah, and so I wonder about something like a spray-on water repellent. Which, again, we're getting into chlorofluorocarbons. I know, but there's only so much we can do in our lives, and he's already coming home after, quote, a diesel shower. So, like, we might just have to, sometimes you have to opt for ease and not use, whatever, saran wrap for the next couple weeks to balance it out.
Also, I don't want to cause any marital discord, but, like, how do we know that this is actually work-related and this wasn't some sort of Zoolander-esque party at a gas station? Is it Zoolander that I'm thinking of, where they're like they shower themselves
and then they
with
all
the
catch
gas
on fire.
pumps,
and
then they all catch on fire? Anyway, that's just another thing to think about.
It sounds like a fun, sexy time either way.
Certainly now imagine Catwoman doing it.
Also, a diesel shower sounds like a sex thing that would happen in like a leather daddy club.
Yeah, I feel like there is a bar in Capitol Hill.
Yeah,
that
you
is
can
probably
pay for a
called
diesel shower.
And you can get a diesel shower in there probably. All right, what a lot of fun. But all of my joking aside, first of all, also thank you, Arians. Thank you for sending in that email. Thanks for everybody for chiming in, and we hope to hear from more of you in the next couple of weeks before we come back. Do we have any specific shout-outs other than help with this laundry situation?
Help with the laundry situation, and also if anybody wants to talk more about how people clean their clothes in the Victorian era, I am always into that. So if you have had any other conversations with archivists or anything of the like, you can share those kinds of stories anytime you want. Never apologize. If you have a story about like old-timey cleaning that you've learned, call us. Love it. Yes. And also, do not apologize for this, Kyler, but I would just like to remind everybody that I do know how to read. I mean, yes, I there's some sounding of things out. I've never seen you read personally.
I have a general grasp of the art of reading. All right, thank you, everybody.
You work in radio, and if I know anything about audio entertainment, it killed the written word. So
as long as it's all spelled out phonetically, I'm good. Thanks, everybody. Really fun show. We will talk to you in a couple of weeks.
You've been listening to the Spotless Podcast. If you have a question for Hannah and Andrew or some cleaning advice, call the Spotline at 508-HOW-WASH. That's 508-469-9274. You can also email them at spotlesspod@gmail.com. We'll be back soon. But until then, always remember, life is messy, but it doesn't have to be.